Hello, and welcome back to the William Gomes podcast. I am William Gomes, and I am grateful to have you here. This series is called Reading Seminar 1 and 2, Lacan's Return to Freud Revisited. In the previous episode, we examined the distinction between empty speech and full speech, and the specific form of analytic listening that this distinction requires. We saw that analytic work does not aim at coherence or understanding, but at allowing a speech to produce effects that implicate the subject beyond the ego's control. In this episode, we address a question that lies at the heart of this approach. What does Lacan mean by truth in a psychoanalysis? At first glance, this may seem straightforward. Truth is often understood as accuracy, sincerity, or correspondence with facts. To speak truthfully is to say what really happened or what one truly feels. But for Jacques Lacan, truth in psychoanalysis does not operate in this way. Truth is not something the subject possesses. It is not something that can be stated fully, directly, or once and for all. On the contrary, truth appears only partially, indirectly, and often against the subject's intention. This is not a limitation to be overcome. It is structural. To understand this, we must return briefly to Sigmund Freud's discovery. Freud did not claim that the unconscious hides a complete truth waiting to be uncovered. He showed that the unconscious produces effects that disrupt conscious narratives. These effects appear in slips, jokes, dreams, and symptoms. What is striking about these formations is not that they reveal a hidden message clearly, but that they do so through error. A slip of the tongue is not a deliberate statement. A joke works because it fails to say something directly. A dream disguises its logic rather than presenting it transparently. For Freud, these detours are not obstacles to truth. They are the very path through which truth appears. Lacan radicalizes this insight. He insists that truth cannot be spoken directly because direct speech is already organized by the ego. When the subject speaks intentionally, they tend to reproduce a coherent image of themselves. They explain, justify, and rationalize. This kind of speech may be sincere, it may be honest, but it is not where analytic truth emerges. Analytic truth appears where intention breaks down. It appears in hesitation, contradiction, repetition, and mistake. It appears where speech goes astray. This is why Lacan gives such importance to error. In everyday life, error is something to be corrected. In psychoanalysis, error is something to be listened to. Mispronounced word, an unexpected association, or a phrase repeated insistently may carry more analytic weight than a carefully constructed explanation. This does not mean that errors contain a hidden message that the analyst must decode. That would simply replace one form of mastery with another. Rather, error marks a point where speech exceeds the subject's control. It indicates that something is being said that the subject does not fully intend. Truth, in this sense, is not a content but an effect. It is an effect produced by the structure of speech, not by the subject's will, and because it is an effect, it cannot be fully anticipated or stabilized. This also explains why Lacan rejects the idea that confession leads to truth. Confession presupposes that the subject already knows the truth and simply needs to admit it. It treats truth as something interior and complete. Psychoanalysis does not operate in this way. A subject may confess something important and yet remain entirely within the logic of the ego. Conversely, a seemingly trivial remark may produce a decisive shift. Similarly, insight does not guarantee analytic truth. Understanding can occur without any structural change. A subject may understand their history, their patterns, and their difficulties while remaining caught in the same repetitions. Truth for Lacan is not measured by clarity or comprehension. It is measured by its effects on the subject's position. This is why analytic truth is often destabilizing. When truth appears, it does not confirm identity, it interrupts it. It creates uncertainty rather than reassurance. It reveals that the subject is not identical with their self image. This destabilization is not a failure of analysis, it is one of its essential effects. At the same time, Lacan insists that truth is always partial. There is no final truth of the subject. There is no complete account that would exhaust what the unconscious produces. Each appearance of truth leaves something unsaid. This is why analysis cannot aim at total transparency. If analysis promised full self knowledge, it would already be betraying its object. The unconscious does not become fully conscious. It continues to insist even after years of analytic work. This does not mean that analysis is endless in a meaningless way. It means that analytic work respects the structure of truth rather than attempting to master it. For the analyst, this has important consequences. The analyst must resist the temptation to provide explanations that close down uncertainty. They must resist the desire to reassure the subject that everything now makes sense. Instead, the analyst's task is to sustain a space in which speech can continue to encounter its own limits. This is why analytic technique relies on indirection. Interpretations are not delivered as truths. They are interventions that produce effects in speech. Silence is not a lack of response, but a way of allowing something to emerge. By following the indirect path of the unconscious, analysis preserves the possibility of truth without reducing it to knowledge. This brings us to an important ethical point. Because truth in analysis is indirect and destabilizing, analysis cannot promise comfort. It cannot guarantee improvement. It cannot assure the subject that they will arrive at harmony or balance. To offer such guarantees would be to replace analytic truth with psychological reassurance. Lacan's return to Freud insists on accepting this risk. Truth is not something that can be delivered safely. It is something that must be allowed to appear in its own time through detour and error. In the next episode, we will examine how this conception of truth transforms the problem of resistance. We will see why Lacan relocates resistance from the patient to the analytic situation itself, and why this relocation changes the analyst's responsibility. Thank you for listening. This is the William Gomes podcast. Take care of yourself, stay curious, and if you found this episode helpful, you're very welcome to follow, share, leave a comment or a rating. I'll speak with you again soon.